Good, I have everything I need. Centimeter Punk has not been released. The real story is the steroid accusations blowing up online, Punk missing Raw, and his uncertain next chapter after losing the World Heavyweight Championship to Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 42. Let me write this with the channel's signature dramatic energy. Centimeter Punk on steroids? WWE's biggest hypocrite exposed, or is this the dirtiest hit job in wrestling history? Let me ask you something. Let me ask you something right now, and I need you to really sit with this question for a second. What is the one thing that Centimeter Punk has built his entire identity on? What is the one thing that separates him from every single other superstar on that roster? What is the foundation, the bedrock of everything Centimeter Punk has ever claimed to be? Straight edge, no alcohol, no drugs, no shortcuts. That is the gospel of Centimeter Punk. That is the sermon he has been preaching since he first laced up his boots on the independent circuit. That is why millions of fans, including people in this community, stood behind this man for decades. Not just because of the pipe bombs, not just because of the 5-star matches, but because Centimeter Punk looked you dead in the eye and said, "I am better than this industry, and I will prove it without cheating." So now you tell me a fan jumps on Twitter, compares two pictures of the Second City Saint side by side, one from his time in AEW, one recent, and calls it peak hypocrisy, accusing the 47-year-old WWE star of using gear. TJR Wrestling. And the internet exploded. This is not a small story. This is not a throwaway accusation from some troll account. This has spread across every wrestling forum, every comment section, every wrestling podcast in the last week. And whether you believe it or not, whether you think Centimeter Punk is innocent or guilty, this story has the potential to redefine his legacy forever. So today, on Wrestling Zone 1, we are going all the way in on this one. Because this is bigger than people are giving it credit for. Here is the context you need. At 47 years old, Centimeter Punk remains in exceptional physical condition. He just proved it at WrestleMania 42, going over 30 minutes with Roman Reigns in the main event. Yahoo Sports 30 minutes. In a WrestleMania main event. At 47, think about that. Punk regularly shares gym photos on social media, and those posts have attracted criticism, including accusations of steroid use. Yahoo Sports. Now here is where things get interesting, because when you actually look at the timeline of Centimeter Punk's physique, there is a noticeable difference between his AEW body and what we've been seeing in WWE. And in a world where the internet moves at the speed of outrage, people saw that difference and immediately jumped to the most damning conclusion possible. Trivia question for the comment section. Do you remember what year Centimeter Punk debuted the Straight Edge Society faction in WWE? Drop your answer below. Let's see who really knows their wrestling history. Now let's talk about who actually stepped up to defend him. Former WWE talent Cezar Bononi responded publicly on Instagram, making it clear he believes the claim is completely baseless and part of a bigger pattern where any physical improvement gets questioned. WrestlingNews.com. Bononi didn't just casually dismiss the accusations. He went deep. He made a video. He broke it down frame by frame. He addressed the accusation directly, stating that Punk's current physique is very, very achievable naturally and shows zero indications of steroid use, while also questioning the confidence behind such claims and pointing out the complete lack of real evidence. Ringside News. And this is the part that matters, Centimeter Punk's own trainer, Jay Ferruggia, left a comment on Bononi's post expressing gratitude while laughing off the accusation entirely. ITR Wrestling. His trainer, the man who is literally in the gym with Punk, the man who designed his program, monitors his nutrition, and watches his body transform in real time, that man came out publicly and said this whole thing is a joke. Now let me ask you this: does that exonerate Punk, or is that exactly what you'd expect someone on his team to say? Opinion question for the comment section. If your trainer publicly vouched for you after steroid accusations, would that be enough to convince you, or would you still want to see blood work? Be honest, drop your takes below. But here is the part of this story that nobody is talking about enough. The hypocrisy angle. Because even if we take the most charitable, most generous reading of this situation and say Punk is 100% clean, there is still an uncomfortable conversation to be had. This is a man who built a career out of moral superiority. The straight edge superstar didn't just avoid drugs, he weaponized his sobriety. He formed the Straight Edge Society. He stood in the ring and told fans that he was a better human being because of his lifestyle choices. He looked down at the crowd and preached at them. He made straight edge an identity, not just a personal choice. Between 2009 and 2010, WWE built an entire major storyline around it. Punk even formed a faction called the Straight Edge Society around that persona. TJR Wrestling. So when random fans on the internet see a physique change and start asking questions, you have to understand the backlash is partly a product of how high Punk set the bar for himself. When you spend 25 years telling the world you're better than everyone else because you don't take shortcuts, every single physical change you make gets put under a microscope. That's not unfair. That's the price of the persona. And this is exactly why the internet caught fire over these accusations. It's not just did he take steroids, it's did the man who made his entire identity about being clean and straight edge secretly become the very thing he preached against. That is why this story is nuclear. Now let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture here. After Punk was absent from WWE Raw this week, fans began speculating that the Second City Saint might be on a break after losing the gold. During his entire title reign, Punk worked as a full-time World Heavyweight Champion. Sportskeeda. Think about what that means. Punk just lost the World Heavyweight Championship to Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 42 in the main event. He's 47 years old. He's now missing television. And in the same week, his character, his legacy, is being attacked on social media by steroid accusations. The night after dropping the World Heavyweight Championship to Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes confronted Punk on Raw. The American Nightmare interrupted Punk's promo about waiting around for another title shot to offer him a shot at the undisputed WWE Championship. ITR Wrestling. So on one hand, WWE is seemingly setting up a huge program between Punk and Cody Rhodes. On the other hand, Punk is now absent, dealing with a social media firestorm, and let's be real, at 47 years old, he is on the back nine of his in-ring career. Interestingly, Punk was seen doing a fishhook gesture after the Raw segment with Cody, seemingly teasing a Gene Rational heel turn. ITR Wrestling. A heel turn. At 47, with steroid accusations swirling, Punk turning heel while his reputation is being questioned online. That is either absolutely terrible timing or it is the most brilliant heat-generating storyline WWE has stumbled into in years. Trivia question: Centimeter Punk has been a heel multiple times in his career. Which heel run do you think was his best? The Straight Edge Society era, the Paul Heyman era, or something else entirely? Comment below. I want the debate. Here is what I need you to understand about these accusations. Cezar Bononi called out the common practice of fans accusing wrestlers of steroid use without possessing any evidence or access to their medical status, asking directly, did you have access to his blood work? How can you say something like this? TJR Wrestling. He's right. And he's also dancing around the elephant in the room because this is professional wrestling. This is an industry with a well-documented, catastrophic history of steroid abuse. From the 1980s Vince McMahon era, to the mass suspensions in 2007 that took out Randy Orton, Chris Masters, Booker T, and a dozen others, to the deaths of legends that shook this business to its core. Steroid accusations in wrestling don't come from nowhere, they come from decades of institutional abuse. So when fans look at a 47-year-old man who looks better than most 30-year-olds on the roster, and I mean that, go look at Punk right now compared to where he was in AEW, and they ask questions, maybe the answer isn't to shame them for asking. Maybe the answer is transparency. Maybe the answer is, in an era where WWE talks constantly about their talent wellness program, we should actually have a real conversation about what that program looks like and what it covers. And here is my final thought, and this one is going to make some of you angry. Regardless of whether Centimeter Punk is clean or not, and I am not saying he's guilty, I want to be clear about that the steroid story is already doing damage. The narrative has already been planted. In the court of public opinion, once an accusation like this gets oxygen, it doesn't just disappear. It follows you. It becomes a footnote. It becomes a question mark next to a legacy that should have none. Centimeter Punk deserves better than that, and so do the fans who have ridden with him for 25 years. At 47, Punk is right up there with recently retired legends like John Cena, AJ Styles, and Brock Lesnar in terms of what he has accomplished at this stage of a career. ITR Wrestling. His WrestleMania 42 main event with Roman Reigns going 30+ minutes, telling the story of an aging veteran fighting until his last breath, was a masterclass. That is the legacy Centimeter Punk should be building right now, not this. Final question for the comment section: do you believe Centimeter Punk is completely natural, or do you think the physique change raises legitimate questions, and more importantly, does it even matter to you as a fan? Drop your honest, unfiltered answer below. And if you think this story is bigger than people are making it, share this video right now, because the wrestling world needs to have this conversation. The best in the world, or the biggest hypocrite in wrestling history, you decide. Wrestling Zone 1. We say what the rest of wrestling media is afraid to.